My name is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm a simple man. I like lifting weights, pretty ladies, a good porno, and occasionally I attend wedding ceremonies I know that I'm not invited to. Purely so I can cause a massive scene when I'm inevitably refused entry, ruining the day for everyone in attendance. Today, I am an upstanding citizen, but this was not always the case. Sure, now I am a good and honorable man, but not too long ago, I was a monster with a blackened soul. The truth is, I used to be a hardened criminal. I committed acts of extreme violence. I regularly stole from small family businesses. I sold drugs. I placed unrecyclable items in the trash cans of my enemies and then reported them to the local environmental authorities so they would be fined a moderate yet affordable amount. I truly was unfiltered scum. And truth be told, I loved it. I loved smashing up cars on the freeway while terrified families with small children watched from inside of said vehicles with pure fear in their eyes. I loved stealing loaves of bread and canned goods from local supermarkets, only to then throw all of my proceeds of crime into the trash right around the corner. I loved throwing whole frozen chickens with extremely threatening notes attached to them through my enemy's bedroom windows at 3 a.m. It truly was the most exhilarating time of my life. The money, the status, the thick-assed women, the cars, the drugs, the raw power, all of it was just magical. But then one day, I woke up and I felt something was deeply wrong with my life. Like some force had grabbed a hold of a piece of my soul and ripped it right out of me. I spent many months in a deep depression and I was hopelessly despondent. I was so deep in a pit of pure misery that not even the most exotic Turkish porno could boost my mood, nor could even the finest huge-assed woman in the world. And then, in my darkest moment, that is when I found religion. I had decided to join my local church after watching one of those delightful church performances on the TV. The way they screamed and ran around like insane people really boosted my mood. And so I joined the church and then became a born-again Christian at the age of 34. I became a contributing member of my community, helping out with the poor and acting as a role model for troubled youth. At this point, I finally felt like my life had purpose beyond my own selfish ambitions. All was going extremely well. That is, of course, until I was molested by Father Donovan. This occurred several times, and frankly, I'm not even really sure how. Because, well, me being in my 30s at the time, you would think it would be hard for a 70-something-year-old to overpower me, yet somehow he did. And I continued to return there for some time until I realized Father Donovan and I's special time was really just a euphemism for homosexual encounters. So naturally, once I had realized what was going on, I left the church and returned to my life of depraved acts and violent crime. So there I was, once again a broken man. I had gone from being a truly dangerous criminal, willing to do whatever it took to get my way, to a born-again Christian at the age of 34, then becoming a valuable pillar of my community, helping the sick and the poor, donating to charities, and finally having a calling in life that I felt served a cause bigger than myself, only to be repeatedly molested by my pastor and have all of that stripped away from me in an instant. At this point, I had given up all hope of a brighter tomorrow. So naturally, the only thing I felt was right to do was to begin a terrifying spree of crime and destruction. I was now not only stealing loaves of bread, I was also attacking innocent people with said loaves of bread. You see, I began to dampen the bread with water, allowing it to soak up as much as possible, and then freezing it overnight to transform it from a delectable treat into an utterly devastating weapon. The pure carnage and terror that my frozen loaves and I inflicted on the public was immense. Truly, I do not think one can call himself a man until he has beaten another man to the brink of death with a frozen solid loaf of bread. The power you feel while enacting such heinous beatings is one of the most intoxicating things a true man will ever experience. I attacked so many people that the local media even started to pay attention. The Brooklyn-bred bandit strikes again, claiming 7 victims and 3 casualties, the headline would read. I always ensured to leave no loose ends when it came to the possibility of these violent acts being traced back to me, so the media never knew who the culprit was, even all these years later. Aside from that, I often would frequent the subway late at night to stare down women riding alone. Sometimes I would scream a bunch of unintelligible crazy talk as well. I, however, had no intention of causing physical harm to these women. It was much more about causing psychological harm for me. I genuinely enjoyed watching them grow more and more fearful as my unsettling gaze remained firmly locked upon them. Before, of course, I would either begin to laugh manically or I would begin threatening my own reflection via the window opposite me. Generally, that is when they would get up and leave. Understandably, of course. I mean, who would feel safe with something like that going on? Am I right? Imagine you're a 4'3", 80-pound, 20-year-old woman alone on the subway, and then some 6'2" muscle-bound psychopath in his mid-30s starts staring you down like a very deranged and extremely hyper-fixated hawk, while either screaming unintelligibly or pointing at no one and screaming that he's gonna bite the face off of and then kill this seemingly invisible man. Are you sticking around for that? I know I'm certainly not, but I digress. Skipping over several months of intensely violent and aggressive acts, including abductions of infants over extremely minor debts, armed robberies of bakeries done entirely for produce, and occasionally strangling a street performer or two, my crime spree came to a boiling point in 1997. It was on one fateful day in June of that year that I had decided to rob 2 little Girl Scouts for their cookie donation box so that I could then use the money I had forcefully taken from them to purchase season 8 of Seinfeld on DVD. And boy, let me tell you, I absolutely terrified those innocent little children while I took every last dollar from them. I was on a rampage like no other before it. I destroyed their puny, foldable table. I tossed their cookies into a nearby lake with more force than 1,000 sexually amped up, stampeding male rhinoceroses, all vigorously charging their way towards a single viable female to mate with. And once I had realized that they only had $16, I became even further engulfed with rage. I then grabbed one of their Girl Scout hats and tore it to pieces in front of their very eyes. I screamed something like, "If you don't cough up some more money this instant, I will come to your homes and tear your cute little puppies apart, just like this stupid hat. Do you fucking understand me?" But, well, I never got an answer from either of them, mainly due to the fact that they were both crying and trembling with fear, which, is understandable given the rather frightening situation they found themselves in. I would have continued were it not for the growing crowd of rightfully concerned bystanders gathering around to observe my appalling act of aggression towards these 2 children. So I left and made my way to the nearest store to purchase season 8 of Seinfeld. As I'm sure you can understand, traveling the streets in broad daylight after committing such a heinous act raised my anxiety quite substantially. but I refused to be deterred by my fear. Eventually, I reached my local Best Buy and hastily made my way to the DVD aisle. I frantically scoured the aisles, knocking down countless pieces of media onto the ground. I searched and searched, yet could not find Seinfeld anywhere in these aisles. I started thinking to myself that perhaps it wasn't here, that fate had pulled a cruel trick on me, or maybe that this was my karma for terrorizing my community for over 6 years. I began to feel tears well up in my eyes, and also I began to feel anger rise up in my chest. I began to storm around the building, destroying life-sized cardboard cutouts of Leonardo DiCaprio made for promotion of the hit film Titanic, which was of course the most popular movie of the year. But this is a story about my own personal transformation, not a commentary on hit movies of the 90s. So anyway, I then became so ensnared in my wrath that I began to scream at the top of my lungs, "Where the fuck is Seinfeld? Where is it?" To which the frightened humble store clerk replied, "Sir, please relax. We have it. We just have to look for it. If you maybe stop destroying everything, maybe we can find it." I agreed, but also made clear that if we did not find it, I was going to jam my fist down his throat and rip out one of his lungs to wear as a hat. Also, I threatened to kill his elderly parents. But that is a given. Anyway, we began to search. Yet still, we found no Seinfeld DVD. My hope was dimming. That was until I moved the unconscious body of the security guard I attacked that I forgot to mention. And to my amazement, there it was in all its glory. As soon as I locked eyes with that DVD, I began to foam at the mouth like a very sick rabies-infested dog, or a young epileptic child having the seizure of a lifetime. I paid the $16, slipped the DVD into my trench coat pocket, stepped over the piles upon piles of broken DVD cases and promotional cardboard cutouts I had just destroyed, and then made my way back to my apartment. But just before I left the store, however, I stopped for a moment, turned to look at the teenage clerk, who I had just threatened to mutilate, stared him down for a few moments, and then left without saying a word. I knew that my gaze clearly communicated that if he told anyone about what had happened there, that I would find him and his family and smash all of their skulls in with a sack filled with frozen chickens. There was no need to verbally speak it. My eyes had clearly said enough. So to cut an already unnecessarily long story short, I was swiftly apprehended by law enforcement later that day whilst in my apartment preparing to begin to watch Seinfeld. A very large group of heavily armed officers came crashing through my door and then took me down faster than a sadistic female Californian mountain lion chasing down a lone hiker and brutally tearing him apart limb from limb so that she may feed her young later that day. Which, mind you, is actually a very big problem in California. The powers that be insist that mountain lion attacks are rarer than Jewish people who do not instinctually desire to control the world and are generous with their money, which we all know is extremely rare, of course. But I know better. I know these psychotic, massive felines are a danger to us all. I've tried taking matters into my own hands several times, but with each attempt, the authorities put a stop to it immediately. Apparently, you can't try to do the community at large a service without being targeted by the state and labeled a danger to the public. You can't just go around nature reserves with a rifle shooting off rounds willy-nilly in all directions in places families are known to frequent, they tell me. And my response to that is, if I am not here defending mankind from these untamable beasts, who the hell will? You think my stray bullets occasionally hitting a 6-year-old child in the leg or a mentally disabled man in the head is a problem, do you? Well, tell me, What the fuck are you gonna do when the mountain lion population becomes so large that they grow bold enough to start attacking people in urban areas? And once they see they can do that, they will grow even bolder. And soon after that, they will be robbing our businesses, stealing our women, and eating our children. But anyway, that's a story for another time. So I was arrested for robbing those Girl Scouts. I was taken into custody to be interviewed. I confessed to my crimes and was then sent to prison for 18 years. While I served my time, I had a lot of crazy experiences, let me tell you. I was stabbed about 23 times. I was sexually assaulted several times by one of my old cellmates, which of course was rather traumatic as it took me back to my times with Father Donovan. I started to train rats to race because, as we all know, rat racing is a huge sport in prisons all across America. I joined the prison's musical production of Grease as the leading man, which I absolutely killed in, by the way. And, I killed a couple people here and there for cigarettes, which now that I think about it makes absolutely no sense because, well, I've never had a cigarette in my life. What else did I do? Well, I befriended a pigeon who would fly to my cell window every day, and I would feed her various bugs that I would squish with my bare hands and hide for safekeeping. But sadly, the friendship between us came to a rather tragic end, as my cellmate at the time, who was a rather violent rapist, found out that the pigeon was a female. And, well, I'd rather not go into it. I think you can deduce what happened based off the facts I have given you. Her name was Lucille, and she was the best pigeon and friend I have ever had. May she rest in peace. Let's see, did I do anything else of note whilst in prison? Oh yes, that's right. I joined a race gang. Obviously, given my lighter complexion and very odd accent, I could not join the Bloods or Crips. So the only other option was the Aryan Brotherhood, which, all things considered, is not the worst gang to be a part of. The only downside was that I was forced to get a swastika tattooed on my ass. And I had to go kill a Jewish inmate to show I was truly devoted to the cause. Frankly, I'm more upset about the huge swastika on my ass. But there was an upside to it. So now whenever anyone tried to sexually assault me, they would be met with that provocative marking, indicating that this ass belonged to the Aryan Brotherhood, not them. And they always backed off after that. So, yeah, that's basically what I did for 15 years. It was one hell of a crazy ride, and I would not change any of it for the world. Although I do wish that I perhaps wasn't sexually assaulted as many times as I was, but that's prison for you, so what are you gonna do, right? During that nearly 2-decade-long period of confinement, however, I began to do something I had never done before. I began to practice the seldom mastered art of true self-reflection. I began to meditate, which was quite difficult at times because, it's a prison. It's not exactly a space that is conducive to peace and serenity. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, but from my own personal experience, it is extremely difficult to try and center yourself through focused breathing exercises when a man is being brutally sexually violated in the cell right next to you, or a guard is being shanked 74 times by 5 inmates about 20 feet up the hallway. Not to mention when you've got one of those wacky schizophrenics locked up with you in your cell screaming about gang stalkers and the return of Christ. Nevertheless, I persisted through all of it, and I eventually reached my own personal happy place. That scene out of Happy Gilmore near the final act, when Happy stops for a moment and then has a vision of a lush green environment with a midget dressed as a cowboy riding a tricycle, and then a beautiful lady holding jugs of beer comes along. Well, I found my own personal version of that. Only my happy place was a penthouse suite that I have just forcefully taken from a newlywed couple on their honeymoon. There are 5 immensely attractive white women with asses so huge that it would bring the hardiest man to tears and perhaps even cause a mild brain aneurysm depending on his levels of anxiety. And Father Donovan is also there, and he's sitting in a corner of the room watching. I have a complicated relationship with Father Donovan, but let us now move on. So once I had found my own happy place, all my deep-seated rage, anger, and utter disdain for the world then lifted from me. It was as if that piece of my soul that had been ripped out of me all those years ago had finally found its way back to me. I was no longer an intensely violent and overly aggressive man. I was now at peace with the world, and more importantly, I was at peace with myself. And then it finally clicked. I had been a real monster for many, many years. I mean, I knew already that I had been a vile man, but I did not care. In fact, I was quite pleased at my wickedness. Now, however, I truly felt remorse for all the wrong I had done and all the innocent people I had harmed. I realized then that it was wrong of me to kill the homeless by smashing their heads in with bricks. It was wrong of me to throw frozen chickens through my enemies' bedroom windows while they slept. It was wrong of me to stare down young women riding alone on the subway. And it was especially wrong of me to terrorize those Girl Scouts on that one fateful day. And so I knew I had to try to make amends. I couldn't apologize to the homeless I attacked because most of them were dead. I also couldn't apologize to the countless ex-enemies whose homes I vandalized many, many times. Because if they knew I had gone soft, they would kill me very quickly. But what I could do is I could try to make amends with those Girl Scouts. So I reached out to some people, and after a couple of weeks of asking around, I actually managed to track down the whereabouts of those 2 little girls who were the reason I was caught and sent to prison in the first place, so that I could write them both apology letters for my terrible actions. Unfortunately, those 2 girls never got back to me. It turns out one of them is now 22 and also a heroin-addicted prostitute. And the other apparently died in a car accident from crashing head-on into a cement truck. I only know this because their parents returned my letters. Obviously, they weren't super thrilled to be reminded of the daughters they had lost by some random man who quite literally traumatized them for life when they were children. But the important thing is that I honestly tried to make amends. So now I had come to terms with myself and my life. Now all that was left was to serve the rest of my prison sentence. But fate had different plans. See, I was placed with a new cellmate. He was a rather emotionally volatile African-American man who went by the name of Morgan Freeman. He was serving time for beating his wife after she interrupted him whilst he was recording a voiceover for some kind of moronic amateur production. A bit of an overreaction if you ask me, but who am I to judge, right? I mean, it would be rather hypocritical of me to criticize anyone for committing excessively violent acts over very minor things at all based off my history, but that's neither here nor there. So Morgan and myself became more acquainted with each other over time. We did not like each other to begin with. We really got into it a few times. He even attempted to slice my wrists with a plastic fork he had smuggled in to our cell and had whittled down over time. But as our sentences went on, we grew to like each other. Then when I shared with him what I did to those Girl Scouts, I had instantly gained his respect and admiration. We were now, as the Negroes like to say, homeboys. And then on October 7th, 2013, Morgan somehow smuggled an explosive device into his cell, blew a hole out of the wall, and made his escape. But because we had become so close, he allowed me to escape with him. So I did just that. And when we finally escaped the prison grounds, I just happened to stumble across a lone parked Ford Torino Cobra with the keys left inside of it that I could use to flee the area. And Morgan just so happened to stumble across a telephone booth that he could use to call and threaten his wife, who sent him to prison. I asked him to come with me, but he refused. The last time I saw him, he was screaming inside of that phone booth at whom I am assuming was his wife. He was certainly a complicated man, to say the least. But regardless of his wildly loose morals, his extreme emotional volatility and general sociopathy, he was a good man, and I miss him dearly. I'm not sure what happened to him, but my gut instinct tells me he fled the scene, got payback on his wife, and is now living somewhere off-grid farming wheat using cheap migrant labor. But who knows? Maybe he's just dead. Now here I am. I am still a wanted man, so I am technically not a quote-unquote free man, but I am free in a deeper sense. I have broken free from the shackles of my own self-hatred and destructive fury, and I am now a changed man who truly wishes to do good for his community and society as a whole. I am not sure what I will do now. I have the capacity to make a great impact, and I have the desire to do so. But it is extremely hard to have a positive impact on your community when you're an escaped convict. I think I'll lie low for a few years. Maybe I will get work as a humble farmhand, feeding the cows and chickens and so forth. Or perhaps I will start a career in pornography. I wouldn't have to use my real name. No one would see my face, as it is rarely the men who are the focus in those kinds of productions, unless it is a homosexual film, of course. But that is not for me. And I have always been a passionate fan of pornography. So it sounds like the ideal route for my life at this point. Regardless of what I will do, I know no matter what, I will have a cleansed soul and a clear conscience. I have atoned for my sins, and I will be sure to never reach such levels of depravity ever again. And now you know my story. There's very little more for me to say, so I will end this story by playing the intro to the hit song Where Is My Head by the Pixies, so as to leave you with a feeling of finality, and to imply emotionally that this story has a bittersweet end. Thank you.